Welcome back to the Rise Above podcast. Today, I'm so excited to be joined by a guy I met about 2 years ago while I was playing football at South Florida, kicking for them. And last year, kicked at the University of Notre Dame. And just a few weeks ago, had a game-winning kick for the Kansas City Chiefs. Spencer Shrader, thank you for being on with me today.
Man, it's a blessing to be on here. Thanks for having me.
Yes, sir. And I remember I didn't realize you were with the Chiefs because I kind of followed you over the past couple of years ever since we met when you were with South Florida. I remember the stuff I use on my iPad to realize what's going on Instagram reads it to me. And I remember it said your name playing for the Chiefs. Then I was like, shoot, you're with the Chiefs now. Then I'm like, shoot, you made a game-winning kick. This is awesome.
Yeah, man, it's been a really crazy journey. I do remember the exact day that we met at South Florida, and it's really cool to reflect on those times because kind of like we were talking about before we started rolling, those adventures prepare you for the moments that you experience now. And I would never have been in the spot to make that kick for Kansas City if I hadn't gone through those adventures at South Florida. So being on podcasts like this and talking with you just helps me to reflect on those adventures and just realize how grateful I am for those experiences.
Yeah, and I think it's a true testament, as we were talking a little bit beforehand too, because that year with South Florida, when I came and spoke to you guys, you guys were in a little bit of a valley. And a few weeks ago, you're at probably one of the mountaintops, but I think it's a true testament to how God is faithful in the hills and the valleys.
He absolutely is. And I think it starts with how we frame and look at obstacles and adversity, because I truly think that some of the most challenging moments of our lives set us up for the most successful moments of our lives. And that's why it's so important to remain calm and neutral even when bad things are happening, because you have no idea how those might manifest into great things. And then vice versa, you can't get too high when those moments of success come, because you realize how quickly you can be at an all-time low. Like even sharing a recent instance, I was blessed to be able to step out there and make a game-winning kick for Kansas City, and then injured my hamstring the very next week. And if I had let myself get caught in these ups and downs, then I would always be in this emotional turmoil of, oh God, thank you for this, but why did I have to go through this? When in reality, I stay very calm and neutral and understand that there is greatness that comes out of every situation. Whether I see it that way or not does not matter, because I'm just a vessel to be used by God.
Yeah, no, that is so true. It reminds me so much of in James when it talks about how we can consider it pure joy in any situation because the testing of our faith produces perseverance. It talks about perseverance does not grow weary, and it always finishes its race. And one of the things I've been most impressed with about you over the past couple of years and listening to your interview after making that kick was just your mindset and how you weren't making it about yourself and how it was pointing to others and pointing to God. Where did that kind of come from? And did that kind of come from how you were raised as well?
For sure. I think I was really blessed to be raised in a Christian household. But when I talk about my faith and I speak to people and explain why I'm a Christian, I'm not a Christian because I was raised in a Christian household. I'm not a Christian because I went to church occasionally. I'm a Christian because I choose to be one. And I choose a personal relationship with Jesus Christ every single day that I wake up. That's what makes you a Christian. And then to me, when you do become a Christian, when you believe those values and you understand the love that Jesus has for all of us and how he died for our sins, you can't help but just kind of live with this passion for life and just this joy for whatever you're given, because you understand what a blessing and the complete anomaly it is for you to even be here walking on this earth in this very instant. It just kind of leads to a very joyous mindset. And so I think that I try to approach every situation just with a sense of gratitude. And in those moments where I do have an opportunity to make a big kick or do something big that generates a lot of, support from the human fan base, I understand that it's just a blessing that I was able to be given that moment. And there's so many people that played into that I can't really just be the one to take all the credit in that instance, because it has been years and years of hard work of other people that have led up to that moment.
Exactly. I know you mentioned how it's been years and years of hard work. How did your kicking journey start? Because I know, as we mentioned, every kicker has a different journey.
It's been a little bit of a wild one. So I actually started by playing soccer, and ever since I could remember, I just loved soccer. No one ever had to force me to play. I just really enjoyed it, and I started when I was like 5 or 6 years old. And from a pretty early age, I thought, you know what, I think that I'll go on to play professional soccer. This is something that I really want to pursue, and I think that I can do. And I followed that dream all the way through high school. In high school, I branched out and I played tennis, ran a little bit of cross country and track. And then my senior year, I did football just for fun. I didn't even want to play. I was actually at soccer practice. I had just finished, and the football coaches came over and they said, "Hey, man, like, we know that you're a good athlete here at the school. We know you got a big leg. Would you be interested in trying out for the football team?" And I didn't even, I was like, listen, I
That's
got to
so
go
funny.
home and think about this because, this is like scary. It's uncomfortable. I've never been a football fan. So I go home and I'm talking with my family and I'm praying about it. And I think to myself, I can't, I don't want to look back and have regrets. I don't want to be
Yep.
40, 50, 60 and say, man, what would have happened if I had said yes to that scary environment and gone and played football? So the next day, I went back over to the football team. I said, you know what, I'll give it a shot. Where do I get started? And they're like, well, season doesn't start for 3 months, so just get yourself right and go out and train and get ready. So I'd go out to the local sports complex next to my house and I'd YouTube videos and I would just practice kicking and punting out there. My parents were shagging for me. And I rolled into that football season. I had no clue what I was doing. We had this equipment manager named Coach Goss, who's still one of my great friends, and he helped me put on my pads and get everything figured out because, again, I had no clue what I
Yeah.
was doing.
But
Um,
that's
you
funny
know,
you say that because Cam Little, when I had him on the podcast, said the same thing when he started playing football. He's like, "How do I put the pads on?"
Yeah, I was like, well, I got to wear a girdle. What's a girdle? I
Yeah.
had no idea what I was doing. So he helped me out with all of that, and I went on to have a relatively successful season. I just was learning as I went. I remember actually we had a preseason game against our like neighborhood rivals, and the first kickoff of my football career ever, got ran back for a touchdown, and I went off to the sideline like, this is not for me. What am I doing here? I'm way out of my comfort zone. And I thought about quitting, but in my life and in my family, there was no such thing as quitting. If you committed to something, you were going to see it through. Didn't mean you had to stick with it long term, but if you committed to something, you were going to see it through. And so I persevered through that season. I ended up having a ton of fun. I met new people. I got out of my comfort zone. I still have great connections, memories, friendships from that senior year. And I put it out of my mind and I went overseas. I took a gap year after high school, and I went and I pursued my soccer dream. And I played soccer overseas in Brazil and Canada, and explored that. And didn't quite work out for me in the way I was hoping. So I came back to the United States in the spring of 2019, and then that's when my football career, I guess, either began or there was the resurgence of it because I walked onto the team at South Florida as a complete nobody, 0 star kicker, and then the college route has then led to where I am today. But it's been a fun journey.
Well, I didn't realize you walked on there. So whenever you walked on, was that the year before Coach DePrado got there?
Yes, so I walked on Charlie Strong's third year at USF, and we went 4-8 that season. I did not expect to start. I remember I walked onto the team and no one knew who I was. I had no ranking. I never worked with the kicking coach. And I thought, you know what? This will be a great opportunity for me to be around an elite staff, to get great training in the weight room, to take my diet and my nutrition seriously. This will make me better. I was an entrepreneur as well. I was running a private training business at this point. So in my mind, I'm like, I'll just use what I'm learning from football to, sort of inspired my real passion, which is being an entrepreneur and growing these businesses. And in reality, the football kind of became the business at the end of the day. But I didn't know that at the time. I was just growing one day at a time. And so I walked on the team and I ended up starting on kickoffs and splitting time on field goals that freshman year. Went through tons of growing pains. I had a game against Cincinnati late in the season. I went 1 of 5, missed 4 kicks from 3 were like far out. One was a closer kick to like win the game off the upright, and I was just crushed. I remember, it's like such an emotional
Oh,
moment. So you're tearing up in the locker room because you let your team down, and just the support I got from my coaches and teammates was amazing. And again, you talk about these situations that no one wants to go through. No one chooses, right? We don't choose the hardships that are laid upon us, but my gosh, like I would not have been able to accomplish what I have today if it wasn't for those moments of adversity. And thankfully they hit me early on, so I was
yeah.
prepared going through that stuff.
Yeah, no, that is crazy. And in your time at South Florida, what are some of the biggest ways you saw your faith grow?
Well, you have to stay rooted to something. And so
Mm,
when you talk about these situations in which you have your highs or you have your lows, or you have moments like that, if you let your identity become your sport, become your athleticism, become, oh, I'm just an athlete, you're not rooted and you're not grounded to anything.
mm,
And it's really, really hard to navigate the storm if you don't have an anchor, right? Because you're just getting
yep,
blown around everywhere. You get water's getting sloshed on board. You're like, who do I like? What do I do? Like, I don't feel rooted to anything. So for me, my faith was what rooted me through that. And I've always had a pretty strong faith, but every time you encounter a moment of adversity, it is an opportunity for you to
mm,
strengthen that faith, to really rely on it and to lean into it and make that your cornerstone of what you're building your life upon and what you're building your philosophy upon. And so I knew in that moment, if I can just make it through this, right? If I can make it through this night, if I can make it through this day, I will be stronger on the other side of it, even though it doesn't feel like that now. And so my faith was strengthened in all of those moments. And then I'm happy to say that now I believe my faith is as strong as it has ever been, but it's not as strong as it will be, right? Because it's a
yep.
continual learning process and it's a continual growing process. And so I'm just very excited for the future and going through the trials that are inevitable to continue to strengthen my faith, and then grateful for the opportunities to share that with other people because we all need something to anchor ourselves to.
Yeah, no, that is so true. And I think obviously our faith is so important because we never know the storms that can be going on around us, but it's so important to know who lives inside of us and those teachings that, man, we can follow every day that can give us such great hope. And something I love that you mentioned too is in some of those harder times, whether it was starting to play football or in your time at South Florida, just some of the encouragement you got. What were some ways that people around you truly encouraged you and helped keep you going in that time?
Well, I've always had this philosophy that the Lord will open doors. We have to walk through them.
Mm,
You know, at a certain point, we got to choose what we want to do in this world and who we want to be. I have been blessed to have an incredible support network, fellowship of Christian athletes, teammates that were deep in their faith, coaches that were men of God. But you have to seek that out. You have to seek out those people. You have to develop those relationships. You have to pour into them as much as they pour into you. You have to put yourself in communities or circles that strengthen your faith. Because if you don't take that step, you're just
mhm.
going to be swayed by whatever environment you happen to find yourself in. So I have been blessed with an immense amount of support and an incredible network of people, but I've also done my best to continue to pour into those people and surround myself with those people to ultimately strengthen me because I know that like anyone, I'm an imperfect person who is a sinner and I'm very corruptible. And if I find myself in an instance, whether I know it or not, I am going to pick up on the traits of this world because I'm a human being. So I really just try to mitigate those situations and just not find myself in situations that are going to cause me to make a poor decision and just choose to surround myself with good strong Christian people, communities that strengthen me and make me better.
Yeah, no, that is so important because even in my life in college, one of the biggest things I've learned is who you hang around is usually who you're gonna end up acting like in some sense, way or whatever it is,
Mm-hmm.
and and especially for encouragement and also for accountability and just like hey, having a friend that's like, hey man, that's not how we're supposed to act.
Absolutely. And I think one of the really cool things is that if you spend enough time around the right people and if you
Hmm.
really strengthen your core, right, and you have resolve in your life, the Lord will start to place you in situations where then you can make a difference, right? So maybe you step into a situation where you're at a party or around a certain group of people, or you have a platform to share a message from, but you're so rooted and you're so grounded because you spent the hard work, right? You spent the time around those people, you spent the time in that word that you're not as influenced anymore, right? You're not pulled in those directions as
Yep.
much. Now God is saying, hey, you're a warrior for me. I'm going to send you into some hostile territory because I want to see you work. I want to see myself work through you. That's a pretty cool place to be. But it takes hard work and it takes commitment to develop that foundation before the Lord gives us the ability to then go in and make a difference in those circles.
Yeah, no, that is so true, and it's so important. To just it says in Galatians 6 to man lay that foundation. You do that by not growing weary of doing good, because at the proper time you'll reap a harvest when you don't give up.
It's really
And
funny that you brought up that quote
yeah.
because that's Coach Jeff Scott's favorite Bible
Okay,
verse. That
wow,
he would recite that to the team all the time during his 3 years
that's
there.
awesome. Yeah,
Yeah.
he because I knew whenever I came and spoke to your team that year, that I spoke right after he got let go. But before Coach Morris and other people had told me great things about him just as a man of God. And
Absolutely. Yeah, he's an incredible person. I learned so much from him. That's one of the verses I've taken from him. Another thing that I learned was how you do anything is how you do everything at the end of
Coach,
the
I know
day.
Coach Morris would say that too.
Yep. And you're a professional. Pros train like pros before they're pros. Those guys, they were really good at bringing a consistent message. And again, I think that's an instance of like things from a record perspective, from a win loss perspective, may not have resulted in success, right? But how do you gauge the impact that a coach
Yep,
has on a player?
yep.
Like how do you can't put a number on that. You can't put a win-loss record on that. And so that's why I'm a believer in good things can come out of bad things. You just have to be able to shift your perspective and look at it that way.
Yeah, that is so true. And a coach told me a few weeks ago that he said, when I die, no one's gonna have my win loss record on my grave. What they're gonna remember is how did I impact lives, and that goes along great with what you just said there. And sure, the win loss record, it might always look great, but that's not how you gauge the impact.
Right.
You gauge it on, man, how is that coach loving players, and how are the players loving each other?
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's awesome. And
Yeah.
I know we talked a little bit about how when you first started playing football, there was a little bit of difficulty, then some hard times you went through. But man, how your faith really grew at South Florida, and how you made some great relationships there. Well, what led you to go to Notre Dame for your last year of college?
It was a really hard decision for me. I had spent 4 years at South Florida. I never redshirted, but I had an extra year of eligibility for COVID, and I really, really wrestled with the decision. I was split. I Part of me wanted to just take a shot and try for the NFL after 4 years. Part of me wanted to stay at USF because I built a community there. I had businesses there, I had a real estate investment there. It was home for me. And part of me, and the scariest part was maybe you should grad transfer. Maybe you should try to get into a new community. Maybe you should try to play football at a little bit of a bigger stage. It'll challenge you, it'll help you grow outside your comfort zone. And I remember wrestling with that decision so much. I talked with my family about it. I talked with coaches about it. Coach Cornblue, he's a kicking coach of mine now. He was very helpful through that. And I think Coach DePrato probably made the biggest impact on me because he was employed at USF at the time, but he was so invested in helping me as a person that he put his desires of a coach aside and he said, I will help you and do whatever is best for you in this moment. And so he was one of the biggest reasons that I got in touch with Notre Dame and had the opportunity to go there. But it ended up becoming a choice between Notre Dame, Michigan, Georgia, a few other really good schools. But as soon as I went and did an official visit at Notre Dame and just experienced what an incredible, special place that is from a faith perspective, from a networking and business perspective, from the football perspective and the history that they have,
Yeah,
it was like there was no choice. I had to go there. I just knew in my heart that was the place for me, and it ended up being an unbelievable journey. I'm so blessed that I made that decision and took that risk to grad transfer.
yeah, no, I'm sure that was an awesome experience being at. Because I mean, a lot of people when they think about football, like Notre Dame is literally one of the first schools people think of when they hear college football. And what were some of the coolest moments you had in your time at Notre Dame?
I remember my official visit. They really rolled out the red carpet. They
I'm
spent
sure it was nice there.
Oh my gosh. And I had never experienced that before because I was a true walk on in South Florida. So I had never been recruited. I didn't know what that process was like. So I go up there for a visit, and Coach Brian Mason, who's the special teams coordinator of the Colts at this moment, he helped me in my official visit. He recruited me. He set all this stuff up. I go there for like a 3 day weekend, and I was just blown away. The attention to detail, the pride that they take in their football program, and the way that they run things. I'm sure that official visits are awesome at any Power Five school, any Group of Five school. But I just knew in my heart that that was the place I was going to be. And the thing that really solidified it was we did a legacy walk that night. It was like Saturday evening, and they take me into the stadium, and it's cold outside and it's rainy. And I'm there with Coach Mason and Coach Schmidt, who is an assistant special teams coach, and then Blake Groupie and Milk Vincent, our long snapper, a couple other players who were all part of this recruiting effort. And we go in the stadium, it's dark and it's rainy and it's cold, and the whole stadium starts playing Rudy music. and they show on the
Wow,
jumbotron these
that's
highlights
insane.
of all of these kickers that have played there, of all of these special moments, and they're kind of walking me across the field, and I'm like, I'm just floored. I'm like, this is such I look over to the side, and there were tears on some of those guys' faces, and I thought in that moment, like, this is real. This is not fluff. This is not just we're gonna do this because we want this kid to come to, like, this place means something to people. Like Blake Groupie, who had kicked there for a year, he'd only been there 1 year, and that place meant something to him. It had a special place in his heart. And so seeing the authenticity of emotion that was coming from those guys really solidified that in my heart, that was the place I needed to be. And then I was blessed because on the flip side, a year later, after having all these incredible adventures and going to this place, I got to be the guy that recruited the next kicker. Same situation. You go in for the legacy walk. They're playing these highlights, and they play my record-breaking 54-yarder up there on the jumbotron as they're blasting
Wow.
the Rudy music, and I started to tear up. I'm like, I can't, like, I've been immortalized as a piece of history, and yes, that means a lot to me, but it's so much more than me. It's this history of people who have spent blood, sweat, and tears and have poured into this university, and it's poured into them. I don't know what is more fulfilling in life, than being a part of something like that. That's something that transcends just the coolness of playing football. Is like it's just something that'll be inside of me forever. That'll be a piece of me, and I'm just so grateful for having that
Yeah, no,
opportunity.
that is
It was unreal.
that is awesome. It reminds me of a quote that Coach Morris used to say all the time from Blake Groupie showing you around on your visit to you being able to eventually show the next guy around is a life impacts a life, impacts a life, and just that's awesome about how Notre Dame that legacy walk they have and how each year the next year you show the person around to show that it's so much bigger than just one person.
Yeah, it's truly special. I remember talking with my dad, and I said, "Man, I don't know if I'll ever be as emotionally invested in a place as this because I feel like once I get to the NFL, it's just going to be a job. It's so commercialized, it's such a business, but this place is different." And I remember having that conversation with him, and I've actually been extremely blessed in the NFL as well to have really authentic relationships with the people in the business. I've been very surprised at people's ability to navigate the stress and the pressure and to still have connections and to still have meaningful conversations. And yes, it's a business, and yes, it's
Mm-hmm.
cutthroat, but I've been really surprised, and I've been really happy with all my experiences so far. And one of my goals in life is that I never reflect back on the glory days. The Lord gives me something to just attack wholeheartedly at every single stage of life.
Mm.
If I make it to 90 and I'm 90 years old, that I would be working on something that would bring me joy and fulfillment and meaning, just like I played at Notre Dame, at USF at Notre Dame, now in the NFL. I never want to reflect back and say, oh, that was the highlight of
Yeah.
my career. Those were the glory days. Yes, they were special, and yes, they were meaningful. But while you have breath in your lungs, the Lord has a plan for you, and that's something that I'm wholly committed to for the rest of my life.
No, that's awesome. I think it's such a great encouragement for myself and anyone listening to this that while you still have breath in your lungs, the Lord still has a plan for you. And I think that goes along great with how after Notre Dame, you got picked up as a free agent, right?
Yes. Yep.
And
Free agent.
you originally got picked up by someone else that wasn't the Chiefs, right?
Yes. So I had known that I was probably going to get a shot at playing in the NFL because I had some cool stats as far as like some record breaking kicks, some pretty far out there field goals. But I never really had the season I ever wanted to have. I never, your expectations for yourself are always higher than what you achieve. And it should
Yeah,
be that way.
that's so true.
But I never really had that amazing season. I thought, maybe I'll get a chance to play in the NFL, but I don't know what it's going to look like. And so I got a combine invite to go up to Indy early this year. It's crazy that it's still the same year
Oh,
that all
that
this
is
went
insane.
down.
Was that in April?
Yeah, it was in
Wow,
April.
that's
It was March. So it was March, and the
okay.
draft was in April. But I went up in March, and I think I was one of the last guys invited to the combine. I didn't expect to get an invite, and I went up there, and I specifically remember I had gone to Passion to start the year, which is that big Christian conference
Oh,
in
that I
Atlanta.
would love to go that
You
sometime.
got to. It's amazing. You have to go to one. And that year at Passion, I said, you know what? I'm going to make a commitment this year that I'm going to journal every day, or try to every day, and just kind of document my experiences and just stay in touch with my faith. And I had kept that promise up to that moment. I wrote in my journal, I said, your goal is to go up to this combine and crush it, you know, to be a great athlete and to have a chance at playing in the league. But your first goal is to be a Christian. And it takes a lot of the stress and anxiety off these moments when you understand that there's a deeper purpose
Hmm.
behind the surface level stuff. So I kind of just went into the combine and you said, you know what? Like, I'm just going to go out here and have fun and play free, and we're going to see what happens. And I had the best combine. I mean, I did awesome. And I'm still think back, I'm like, man, like, that God showed me in that instance in front of everyone with the guys that got drafted that I had what it took to play in this league. And it was a very inspiring moment for me. And I just feel very blessed to have had that experience. And so that's what really got me on the radar. And so solidified some teams' thoughts that I had the potential to play in the league. And so I ended up going through the pre-draft process, and as it got closer to the draft, I thought maybe I had a chance of getting drafted just because my combine performance was so strong. Um, but I got some free agent opportunities with the Colts and with the Giants, and really had some trouble deciding which one I was going to take because choices are tough, and there's positives and negatives any way that you look at it. But felt like Indy was the place that I needed to be in my heart. There's just a lot of community there. I'm from there originally. I love the coaches there. Staff's amazing. And so I kind of decided I'd go with the Colts if I didn't get drafted. And so when the last pick was getting put in, the Mr. Relevant pick, Coach Mace called me. He said, "You ready to do this, bud? Like you ready to go?" It's like, yeah, like let's do it. So I obviously didn't get drafted, so I signed as an undrafted free agent with Indy. Um, they got me a $20,000 signing bonus, which was amazing. As an undrafted free agent kicker, that's kind of crazy, and just showed a little bit of more of a effort on their part to get me there. And so I went to Indy in early May for a rookie minicamp, and then the rest is history from there. I spent my whole preseason with them and just had an unbelievable time. Loved the people in that building. Loved the specialists. I enjoyed being there every single second. I never wanted to leave. But sometimes, the Lord has plans for you. You got to get out of your comfort zone. So I ended up going to the Jets for a little while and then ended up on the Chiefs. But yeah, Indy has a special place in my heart.
No, that's awesome how they really put in the effort too to give you that signing bonus as a kicker, and and then you're with the Jets for a little bit. So what was it like whenever you got the call from the Chiefs that they wanted you to come kick for them?
So I was in Indy, and I was so comfortable there. I was growing and I was developing every single day. And I was like, man, I don't want to leave this place. Like, this place is just special to me. And I knew at some point I was going to have to go, whether I wanted to or not.
Hmm.
So when I was in the process of getting moved on and off practice squad at Indy, they were taking care of me every week, and I was on practice squad every week. But there were some moments where I had to be moved off. And I said, okay, I'll get outside of my comfort zone. I'll go do some tryouts. So I went up and I did a tryout with the Giants, and made some more relationships there, and built some connections. And then went back to Florida for a weekend. And then the next weekend, I went up to the Jets to do a tryout. And they bring in 6 kickers to get us all in there. And, we go out there and we're kicking. And again, it's all of these moments are stressful, but every time you go through an experience, it hardens you. You get just a little bit more used to it. You're a
Yep.
little more comfortable. So I go up there, and at one point in time, I vividly remember that would have terrified me to go into that tryout setting with those other kickers and have to perform in a stadium. We're kicking in the stadium, and the GMs out there, all these people. In that moment, I was like, I love Indy so much, like I'm good. If I don't stay with the Jets, I'll just go back home to Indy.
Yeah.
So again, it kind of took a weight off my shoulders. But I ended up having a pretty good workout, and they said, "Hey, we want to assign you to practice squad, give you a chance to compete, to play on Thursday." It was a Thursday night game. Yeah, I'm just like, okay, geez. I was literally traveling with one backpack and a pair of cleats because I thought I was going back to Indy. And all of a sudden, I'm staying in New Jersey and I'm
That's
playing
crazy.
for the New York Jets. So I signed a practice squad contract with them. I'm living out of a hotel in my one backpack. I go into New York City and like buy some extra clothes. I have a week's worth of socks and underwear at this point. I'm doing laundry at the local laundromat. It's like I'm just living this crazy lifestyle. So I play a game with them and have a pretty good game, and really appreciate the people in that building. Like I'm very grateful that they gave me an opportunity to play and that they wanted me to stay. But when I got that call from the Chiefs on Thursday, and they were like, we need a guy, and you're our number one option. I was faced with yet again another opportunity to choose fear and to choose hard. I was,
Hmm.
man, I got to do it. Like, even though I had just started with the Jets, even though they were offering me a 53-man spot, I was like, I got to do it. I got to choose hard. I got to take this risk. I remember being so scared because on my flight here, I was getting blown up. Like text messages from people, Instagram comments are going crazy. There's so much media coverage around the Chiefs. There's such a big
Yeah.
program that everybody knows, everybody sees it. So
Mhm.
my phone's getting lit up, and I'm just thinking, like, in my mind, like, what if I fail? Like, this amount of exposure is cool, but that can be bad too, because what happens if it doesn't work out? But I was like, don't think about it that way, because the Lord has provided for me every single step of the way. Why would he fail now?
Hmm.
He has positioned me for success. Whether I saw it as success or not is not always the case, but he has positioned me for his version of success every single stage of my life. Why would he fail now? He has a plan for me. Trust him. And so I convinced myself of it. I came here. I started against the Bills and kind of got my feet wet and was able to play in a game in a really cool stadium and environment, the intense atmosphere, and then played in another game and made that game-winning kick. Uh, but none of that happens if you don't choose fear. And that's the
Hmm.
crazy thing to me, is that I so easily could have stayed. We wouldn't be having this conversation right now. Like it was like I was teetering on the point of, do I stay or do I go? And you take that step of faith, and then all of a sudden it leads to all these opportunities.
Yeah, no. And one verse that I've just been thinking of in that time is, I mean, because obviously I can imagine myself in that situation. Is in our own flesh, the easy thing, like you said, would be like thinking, okay, I'm comfortable here. I just want to stay here. But I kept thinking of a verse that's helped me so much in times of fear as well is Proverbs 3:5-6, where it says, trust in the Lord with all your heart, lean not on your own understandings, in all your ways acknowledge him, and he will make your path straight. And I think that's a great two verses too for the post game press conference I saw uh, you talking about after you made that kick. Where there's three things that really stood out to me in that press conference where you talked about, man, how you were just grateful, how you were thankful for the people around you, and how you talked about Philippians 4. And I think you mentioned Philippians 4, verse 6, exactly, where it talks about um, by prayer and petition, have thanksgiving in all circumstances. And I think that's so awesome because one thing I've learned is you can really tell a lot about people, uh, especially kickers, how they respond after they miss a big field goal, and also what they give glory to when they make a big field goal.
Hmm. Yeah, in that moment, I think you revert back to the habits that you've built. And so we talk about this story of how it started as a 6-year-old playing soccer, and then eventually led to um, choosing to play 1 year of high school football, and then playing overseas, and then walking on to USF, and then choosing Notre Dame, and then choosing the Colts, and then being with the Chiefs. And all of those are opportunities for you to develop good habits that create your character. And then in those moments of high praise or low praise, you revert back to the habits that you've built. And so I'm very grateful that I have spent hard work building a character that I believe is consistent regardless of the inconsistencies around me.
Mm-hmm.
That if I had missed 3 kicks that game and they interviewed me in the locker room, that I would have been just as capable of delivering a speech and saying, no, I'm still grateful for my teammates. I am still grateful for this opportunity. I still wouldn't be here without all of these amazing people in my life. And yes, I still rely on my faith and lean into Philippians 4 in this moment, just as I do if I made that game
And
winning
that's
kick.
such an awesome passage too.
It's a good one. And it's funny
Yeah,
that I
no.
was reflecting on that in our team Bible study, and it's just what came to mind in that moment to quote that verse. But I think that's the really cool thing about the Bible, is that it seems like it has an answer for everything. That's
So,
again, and one of the reasons I've chosen Christianity is because there's a lot of different philosophies out there. There's a lot of places that you can put your purpose and fulfillment and meaning. But where else do you have as consistent and coherent as a message
mm,
as from Jesus and an answer to every single situation that we ever deal with on this earth is in that book. That to me is what makes me a
that's
believer.
that's so true, and that's such a great reminder for everyone listening to this that no matter what you're going through, the Bible has an answer for literally any situation you could face on this earth. Even though it was written such a long time ago, it's still applicable for what we're going through right now. And something I love to ask everyone I have on this podcast, Spencer, is if there's one thing people can know you for, anyone that's came across you, I know you've lived in so many places the past 2 years since we've known each other, but if there's one thing someone can know you for, what would you want that to be?
I think I'm obviously going to tie it back to my faith. A consistent person. It doesn't matter. Make a kick, miss a kick, famous, not famous. See me in an elevator. See me in a hallway. I will be a consistent person regardless. It doesn't matter who I'm speaking to. That's something that I pride myself on. I take more pride in that than my athletic ability or anything else. That's what I want to be known for, is just a genuine person who wants to make this world a better place. And if that means kicking an oval ball through two yellow posts and get a bunch of rowdy people in there drinking beer and like, yeah, the ball goes in. Like, if that's the way I'm gonna do it, that's what God wants me to do. But it doesn't really matter. Like, I want consistency in my character, and I would just want to be a great person that makes this world a better place, whatever the Lord chooses to do in my life.
That's awesome. And I would say I see you doing that, but I'd probably be wrong if I said that, but you're definitely doing a great job of that. And,
Thank you. I
but
appreciate that.
something I love to finish every episode of this podcast I have with is obviously there's gonna be someone that's listening to this today that obviously has been encouraged by what you've said through going through the ups and downs of life, and just like life going through the ups and downs of kicking. Um, what's an encouraging message you have for someone that is going through a hard time in their own life right now, and just feels stuck?
Man, life is such a blessing, and we're very adaptable to our circumstance. I find it interesting that a lot of people seemingly have it all, but they don't, right? They're
Mm,
broken on the inside and they're hurting. And some people seemingly have nothing, at least materially speaking, but are just joyous people that radiate joy and love and positivity and hope. And so I really believe that the power of the mind is something
mhm,
that we should talk about more often. Our ability to change our circumstance, our ability to think positively, our ability to create purpose and meaning for ourselves in the way that we think and act and speak is an extremely powerful thing. And so for those people that are just dealing with struggles and the inevitable things that will happen in life that will drag us down, you just have to choose joy in that instance.
mhm.
You have to surround yourself with the right group of people to pull you out of that. You have to pour into the word, let the word pour into you, and you have to choose to look at the positives in every single situation, as hard as that may sound. And it's not an easy thing, and I know that it's not an easy thing, and I empathize with everyone who's going through difficult times. But I know that we have a just and a good God that is looking over us. And I know that He gives us opportunities to pull ourselves out of the darkness. And so I just have faith that through determination and conscious effort, we can make a life for ourselves that has purpose and meaning and fulfillment, no matter what happens to us from an earthly standpoint. So, is there one thing that I can say that's going to change anyone's life? No. I think the best thing you can do is to have faith, pour into the word, let it pour into you. But I just think that people should be left with a message that there's a lot more hope than sometimes we think there is, that we have a lot more power over our circumstance than we give ourselves credit for. And I hope people can really believe that and start to apply that in their own lives, and special stuff will start to happen.
Yes, exactly. I love what you said there about no matter what we're facing around us. And I think this even goes back to so much about, I remember when reporters were asking you questions after you made that kick, they kept asking about so many external circumstances going on around you, whether it was the crowd noise or, man, it's going to be a big kick. It's so many people are going to be watching, whatever it was. And I loved how you kept pointing back to just the things you can control. And like you said right there, man, the mind is such a powerful thing that, man, it shows we can do so much more. Like it says in Ephesians 3, verse 20, that Christ can do immeasurably more in us than we could ever think or imagine. And that is so true what you said right there about, man, it's so important to, no matter what we're facing, whether it's a high or low in life, man, get in the word. And you truly can live with joy, put in Jesus, others than yourself. And man, surround yourself with great people. And I love what you said right there, man, because it's so radiant. The last thing you said about, man, having a positive attitude, because that's been one of the biggest ways that, man, I've been able to see Christ through others too. Just like it says in Matthew 5:16, letting your light shine for Christ, because, man, we truly never know who will come across. And man, I know you're doing a great job of that, because, man, one of my favorite things to listen to is athletes after a big game or any kind of game, whether they did good or bad, but they're not focused on the outcome. They're focused on, man, despite the outcome, I'm going to have hope no matter what. I'm going to live with joy because my hope's in Christ. And I know you've encouraged me with that during this podcast, and I just want to encourage you to keep it going, because I know you'll impact so many lives that you'll come across, no matter where you'll end up. Because as you know, you've been in a lot of different places.
Been a lot of places. Will probably continue to be a lot of
Yeah.
different places. But thank you for saying that. It means a lot. I think what you're doing is amazing. How you're using your platform and your voice to spread a positive message as well, allowing me to come on, and share my side of things it's really a privilege. And the last thing I'll say about kind of that example of purpose and fulfillment, if you can be confident and say, if the Lord took everything away from me, if he took the football, if he took the fame, if he took the money, if he took the cars, if he took the sight, if he took the athleticism, I would still have just as much purpose and meaning in my life, because I'm here and I'm alive and I have the ability to touch and impact people and to create things. How amazing is that? Like, how inspiring is that? It's our salvation is not contingent on materialism or what we're doing. The Lord has done that for us. We're free to just live. That's a beautiful thing.
Now, that is so true, and reminds me so much of in John 9, verse 25, where they're talking about a blind man who was just healed. But it can relate so much to our life too, because so many times in life we feel like we need to have all these things to be fulfilled. But really, what we figure out when we keep searching after things is just like putting our hand in the ocean. When we put our hand in the ocean, that water will be there, but right when we take it out, it's gone. In John 9:25, it says, I once was blind, but now I see. And that's so true about our relationship with Christ, man. That, and like you just said right there, man, that is how we find fulfillment, and that's how we can keep going every day.
Absolutely.
Yes, sir. But I appreciate you so much, Spencer, for taking time out of your day. I know you just got done volunteering with the Chiefs, and man, being on this podcast, and man, I'll be rooting for you with the Chiefs or wherever you end up.
Well, thank you. I appreciate that. It's a pleasure to be on. I really look forward to our next discussion. It's going to be awesome.
Yes, sir. I hope our paths cross again at some
point.
Oh,
they will. They will. Trust me.
Thank you for listening to the Rise Above podcast. Don't forget to subscribe on YouTube, and as well as follow us on any streaming platform at The Rise Above Podcast. And don't forget the. Everyone have a blessed day.